Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. We have invited Angela Thompson Smith back to the show today. She is a professional remote viewing trainer, teacher, a researcher, a former nurse, and an author of many books. One we will be discussing today called Remote Perceptions, Out-of-Body Experiences, Remote Viewing, and Other Normal Abilities. Now, if you've been listening to It's Rainmaking Time, you know that we have really gone in to do our due diligence about remote viewing. We've interviewed several of the people on the Stargate team, Lynn Buchanan, Paul Smith, and others, and we interviewed Angela many months ago, and it led me to actually have her become my teacher and my staff and associates, and she flew here to Pasadena area. We spent 5 days with her in session, and I have to tell you, it was the most mind-blowing experience. I've actually invited her on today to discuss remote perceptions and to talk about the actual training from the point of view of having been her student. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Angela Thompson Smith back to It's Rainmaking Time. Good morning.
Hi, Kim.
All right, for those people who have not heard about remote viewing, don't have a context for it, I want to talk about what it is first. Lay it out for us again, please.
Right. Remote viewing is a trained ability, mental ability, using the mind to access information from a distant location, whether that's across the room in an envelope or across the world, using something other than the known five senses, which can access objects, events, locations, and people, sometimes in quite great detail.
Now, from my reading and my interviews, and now having been your student, it is clear that controlled remote viewing as a protocol is very distinct and very different from simple intuition. Describe why.
Right. There's something called spontaneous remote viewing, and Ingo Swann, who's talked about as the father of remote viewing, says that there is a natural ability that we all have, which is called spontaneous remote viewing, in which we can pick up information, sometimes at that moment or in dreams or in meditation. But it's not as complete as something you pick up through a structured protocol like controlled remote viewing.
This is going to sound like a testimonial, everybody, but I did take her course. So I'm going to be speaking from having been in her course. I always knew I was very intuitive. I have psychic ability, meaning on behalf of other people, a lot of times I'll hit the nail on the head about a situation. Usually it's business-oriented or health-oriented. I don't offer intuition services for a living, but it's part of the faculty of what I do. But I never, ever felt that I was psychic in terms of being able to predict or to give incredible detail into things. But I have to tell you, when taking your course, I cannot believe how, through that protocol, I was able to locate, identify, discern, describe what's in an envelope or some type of coordinate or physical thing that's somewhere that I don't even know where it is. I cried during one of my sessions because I got it spot on. It's kind of like the distinction, Angela, between thinking you know something, you have a sense of something, and then having total confirmation that that capacity is real and doable and accessible. It's totally mind-blowing. That was my experience.
Mm-hmm. And I've had many students who have had that same experience. It's that aha moment when you're going through a session, and a session can last up to an hour, as you know, and you're battling through it, just gleaning information up from the subconscious, not even knowing if it's right or not, writing it down, saying it, adding it to the mix of what you've got on your pages, and then opening up that folder and seeing the picture, or even the text, because we worked from some text targets only, and seeing that, and that aha moment when you go, wow, I did it. And it really is an emotional experience for many students.
No matter how much you can describe what remote viewing is, And I understand it really, from Ingo Swann's point of view, should be called remote perceptions, which is actually the name of your book.
Yes, use all the senses.
Exactly. It's an experiential paradigm shifter when you realize the way in which we define what's accessible to us, the whole lid is taken off of that. The whole mindset is opened up and expanded, and there literally is no limit for what you can access. From an experiential place, it is so different when you have access to that.
It changes your life because after that, nothing is really hidden. You know that you can remote view anytime, anywhere, anything. There are certain ethical considerations that come in. You don't go and start remote viewing your ex,
Right.
But it can be used for humanitarian work, for business applications, lots of other work that you can do with it.
What do you think about the work of James Van Avery?
I read some of his work about future memory. I think that's valid because I've actually had students do that in an open-ended course where we do not controlled remote viewing, but more spontaneous remote viewing. And I've had students go ahead in time, then look back at a particular point in time that they want to find information about. And I'll give you an example. One student wanted to do the exercise, so she cast her mind from where she was in the class at point A to point C, which was a couple of weeks ahead, past the point at point B where she wanted to get the information. So she went to point C and then remembered back to B, because B by that time would have already happened. It makes a whole mockery of time. And what she perceived herself at point B, which was 2 weeks from point A, where she was in the class. She saw herself in a tropical location with tropical flowers, humid and moist and beautiful, birds singing. And she wrote all this down and said, reported back to the class, well, there's no way. I have no plans to do anything like this or go anywhere like this. But then when she was in the intervening 2 weeks, her daughter had started dating a Hawaiian and invited them all out to Hawaii.
That's great.
She found herself in Hawaii at point B. And it was like, wow, here I am. And she sent me a letter saying what had happened. And that's called future memory. So you're remembering back. Rather than looking forward, you're remembering back to something that's happened in the future.
Is anything really happening at the time frame we think it is?
I think a lot of it is there, waiting to happen, but we still have some free will.
Talk about that.
I believe in free will. I think that every decision we make, whether it's A, B, or C, changes our random walk in the future. So we go, okay, decision A, then decision C, decision B. Every single decision we make changes the future. But it seems like we're heading down a certain path that maybe the decisions in the past have headed us in that direction. And there's also the quantum mechanics, which I don't fully understand. I'm not a physicist, but that time events are rolling along like a wave, and in that wave are particles of events. And perhaps by choosing a particular or viewing a particular future, we collapse the wave. We make that future more likely to happen.
So do we really manifest anything?
I think we can.
Talk about that.
I've proven that for myself. I've set in motion certain expectations, and I know that we have to do the behaviors too. We have to put action in and work to go in a certain direction. But there have been things that have happened in my life and people that have come across my path that have been amazing, and only through manifestation.
I wonder if it's actually you doing the manifesting or if it's actually happening on its own, if the future is just coming toward you.
Could be. Who knows? There's still some magic in life, and I think we still have to have some things that are unknown and mystical and magical.
Talk about your relationship with Ingo Swann, how you met him and what your experience of him is.
Right. Ingo's a great guy. He's a bit of a curmudgeon, and he won't mind me saying that. I'm sure he'd agree with me. He lives in Manhattan. He's getting on in the years a bit now, and I met him back in, I think it was 93 or 94. I'd been working